Welcome to the latest episode of our podcast series for financial advisors. Today's episode is From Merrill to Rockefeller, a journey of exclusive access and extraordinary growth. It's a conversation with Neil Rubinstein, private advisor and managing director of RSA Family Wealth at Rockefeller Capital Management. I'm Mindy Diamond, and this is the Diamond Podcast for financial advisors. At Diamond Consultants, we help elite advisors identify the right environment for their businesses to thrive, whether that's at a wirehouse, boutique, or independent firm. With nearly 3 decades of experience, we've guided thousands of advisors and represented more than $250 billion in assets transitioned. And each year, 1 in 4 advisors managing $1 billion or more who change firms are our clients. Our process is education-driven and based on building relationships, starting as your strategic partner well before you're even thinking of a move. To schedule a confidential conversation, call us at 908-879-1002. Wondering why advisors change firms and where they're headed? Are transition deals going up or down? Those very questions and more inspired us to create our annual Advisor Transition Report. It's the award-winning, data-driven resource designed for advisors that connects the dots between the motivations around movement and the firm's appetite for top talent. Arm yourself with the knowledge you need to make smart decisions. Download your copy at diamond-consultants.com/transition report. Advisors often assume that staying at a wirehouse means access to the best products, the strongest brand, and the most exclusive opportunities. But what happens when you discover that exclusive can mean something very different and far more powerful outside the walls of a big firm? That's the story of Neil Rubinstein, an 18-year Merrill veteran who made the move to Rockefeller Capital Management in 2019. It was a move inspired by the realization that things were changing at Merrill. As Neil describes it, he and his team were spending more time checking mortgages and credit cards than they were managing their clients' wealth potential. Ali Brunwasser and I from our team had the privilege of helping to guide Neil on his journey to identify what could be better enough to take on the hassle of moving a practice that was managing some $600 million in assets. And while independence was intriguing, Rockefeller checked many more boxes than they could have imagined. Since then, Neil's practice has more than doubled in both revenue and assets under management, evidence that the right environment with access to a vast toolbox can change what's possible. Neil shares how Rockefeller's platform, purpose-built for high and ultra-high net worth clients, unlocked avenues he hadn't had before, from direct investments to family office services, philanthropy, and lifestyle advisory. He talks candidly about the perception of exclusive at a wirehouse, how that definition shifted at Rockefeller, and why he believes he's in a better position than before. For advisors weighing their next chapter, this is a grounded look at access, alignment, and growth, told by someone who's lived on both sides, with a candid look at the heralded Rockefeller brand. So let's get to it. Neil, I am so grateful to be here with you today because I knew you when, and we'll talk a little bit about that, but thank you for making the time today.
Well, Mindy, it's an honor to be here with you. You're really an industry leader, and I'm delighted to participate in this program with you.
Thank you. All right, a lot to unpack here, so let's jump in. So I want to start, obviously, by asking you a little bit about what brought you to the business and your background. But you're in the business about 2 decades, a little more than 2 decades. What would you say is the number one thing you've seen change about the industry landscape or the industry in the last 20 years?
Well, there's so many things that have changed. So if I've got to pick one, I would say it's the toolkit that's available to advisors like me And like everyone across all different platforms, the toolkit is just dramatically expanded
Mm.
from where it was 25 years ago.
Yeah, I think that's a really good answer. So, talk with us then a little bit about your background. You spent 18 years at Merrill Lynch and the last 6 years or so at Rockefeller, but tell us a little bit about what brought you to the industry and a little bit about your professional journey.
I started as a CPA working for, at the time, a big six firm, now big four. And the CPA business was great in terms of being at those firms. You're surrounded by just first class, really smart people. Ultimately, it wasn't for me. I felt like I was a little cog in a big machine, not really able to have impact on people, reporting about transactions that had occurred sometime in the past. And I felt like financial planning, particularly in the financial service industry, would allow me to really be on the front end with people, and as it evolved, on the front end with families to help them plan and to have an impact on their lives. And that was really appealing to me 25 odd years ago. And it's still really exciting and appealing to me today.
Yeah. So, for perspective, let's give our listeners a sense of your business, the business that you run. As I said, we were privileged to represent you in your move from Merrill Lynch to Rockefeller six some years ago. So let's tell our listeners, if I recall, you were managing about 600 million or so in assets when you left Merrill Lynch. Tell us a little bit about what the business looks like today, who your clients are, the kind of work you do for them, the team, just a little for perspective.
Absolutely. I'd be glad to do so. But I do want to thank you once again, because I don't think I know I wouldn't be at Rockefeller without your help. And that's meaningful to me, significantly meaningful, not just as a business person, but in my life. So thank you. The business is great. I'm really privileged to be in this field. I'm excited about it. Our team is 9 people. We left Merrill with 8 people. We've had a terrific run over the last 6 years, and we'll get into the reasons why, I'm sure. But we've grown at 2.5 times in the last 6 years. So, really tremendous growth. I think if I could sign up for 2.5 times growth every 6 years, so about doubling every 5 years, that would be terrific. It has been terrific. I feel really blessed to be in this business. Our clients have evolved over time. We are at a firm now that was built from the ground up for the high net worth and ultra high net worth. And that's really where our business has gone over the last 6 years. We work with a number of family households, approximately 200, and that has evolved again, high net worth, ultra high net worth over the last 6 years. And it's really been a great run. And I look forward to it continuing.
Amazing and really exciting. And I think everybody, by the way, would sign up for 2.5 times growth in every 6 years. I want to spend a lot of time on this episode talking about that growth and what fueled it. But let me just ask you a quick question now. Do you think that you would have experienced 2.5 times growth in that same time period had you stayed at Merrill?
Well, look, it's hard to rewind the clock, but the short answer is no, I don't think so. I think the privileged position that I'm in now with the firm that I'm at really gives me and my team an advantage in the marketplace. And if I sound like a cheerleader for the firm that I'm at, it's because I am. I'm really excited to be here. I was excited 6 years ago. I'm excited now, and I bet I'll be excited 6 years from now.
Awesome. Okay, so I promise our listeners and you, we're going to come back to why that is, what fuels that excitement and all of it. But I want to spend a couple minutes talking about your time at Merrill. 18 years is a long time to be with one firm. Tell us a little bit about how things changed at Merrill over time.
I think it's the old story. With the perspective of looking back, they were gradual changes. At the time, it felt like it was all of a sudden, and that's typical. The changes were such that we were spending more and more time answering questions about where our clients had their checking account, where our clients held their mortgage, which credit cards our clients were using, rather than really having the opportunity and time to focus on putting the client first. And so that's the broad brushstroke of how things changed over time.
But what drew you to Merrill in the first place? Your answer is exactly what we hear from every Merrill advisor we have been privileged to counsel or be in dialogue with. And that's not to tell you that you are ordinary. It's to say that's a common answer. But we all know that there's plenty of good stuff going on at Merrill, including what drew you there. So, in the 20-year period, what kept you, or 18-year period, what kept you there for 18 years? What was the good stuff? And then, like, was there a watershed moment or an aha moment where you just knew it was time to go?
You're 100% right. Look, if I go back to 2001, I started at Merrill 20 days before 9/11. I watched the towers fall on what was at the time, I think, called TGA TV. I was a young person, super impressed that I could even watch TV on a computer screen. It was a great place. I was a CPA who thought I was pretty bright and could do the financial planning work and could talk to people, but I really had no business development experience. And I felt that it was really important to have a big brand behind me, scaffolding behind me, resources behind me, because as I learned from my son, there's no compression algorithm for experience. So I couldn't fake it. Day one, I had 1 day experience, but I did have a treasure trove of resources and a big brand behind me and a culture that at that time I really felt was people first, people forward, client first. And I learned so much from so many people at that firm, and not just the people employed by the firm, but the people we used to call wholesalers who would come in and talk to me. And I had the opportunity to, I think, take a little bit from everyone and synthesize that, make it my own, and go to the marketplace. And it turned out to be successful.
So, first of all, I love what you said that when you're young in the business, you need to make yourself seem not seem smoke and mirrors, but you need to make yourself hold yourself out as someone that has more experience than you do, more resources than you do, more than you do. And so, being at a big firm earlier in your career helps you to do that. The second thing I would say, which was true, is that in the olden days, so rewind 20, 25 years ago, if you were not at a big firm, the other choice might have been a regional firm. But in those days, regional firms like RBC and Raymond James and Stifel, which have really leveled the playing field these days,
Mhm.
if you were serving any sort of a high net worth client base, you didn't really belong at those firms. And those firms didn't have the cachet that a Merrill had in those days. So let's talk a little bit. I want to pivot now to conversation about Rockefeller. So we know the Rockefeller name is synonymous with high net worth clients, but it wasn't, and 6 years ago, even less so, necessarily or definitively synonymous with experience or scaffolding. It was a relatively new firm 6 years ago, still today, and certainly by size in comparison to a Merrill. So while the name was appealing and we get it, do you think that Rockefeller gives you the same standing with clients in the marketplace, et cetera, that Merrill did?
Look, I think it gives us better standing in the marketplace. I think it's a true differentiator without question, and we can get into the details of why I think that. But the brand alone is a true differentiator in the marketplace. And to your point, it was not as well known to the advisor community, let alone the client community, right? I thanked you because and I do thank you, I hadn't heard of Rockefeller 6.5 years ago. Now, my guess is, and I don't know this, but my guess is that nearly every significant team that is considering a move has definitely heard of Rockefeller and is at least kicking the tires. And I know from our CEO, Greg Fleming, and the president, Chris Dupuis, we're not going to take on everybody, but I bet everybody at least is aware of it and is going to kick the tires. So the conclusion is a better position than
Yeah.
before.
So you're 100% right, and we'll get to some of those capabilities, the specifics. But you are right. There is not an advisor in the marketplace that isn't aware of Rockefeller, that doesn't ask about it. It doesn't mean that Rockefeller is for all of them. Either they don't serve high net worth enough clients, they may not be in a market that is appropriate for Rockefeller, they may not be the right cultural fit. The advisor may want more independence than a Rockefeller allows, whatever it may be. It's not to say that everybody belongs at Rockefeller, but every advisor will at least ask about it. And that's a good thing. I think it's worth noting that I started this interview by asking you, like, what changed in your mind in the industry in the last 20 years? From where I sit, what changed more than anything is the expansion of the industry landscape. And it used to be that if a team like yours were going to leave Merrill, say 20 years ago, the choice was either you go to a Morgan, a UBS, what might have been Smith Barney or PaineWebber or whatever it is at the time. Maybe you would have started thinking about full on independence. JP Morgan might have existed at the time, but there really wasn't anything in between. From having had the privilege of meeting Greg Fleming, of talking with a lot of and knowing Rockefeller's leadership well, I think the coolest thing about Rockefeller is that Greg Fleming and the fellow leaders built this firm to respond to the hole that existed in the marketplace. There was a whole host. This is from where I sit. I'd love for you to respond to it. From where I sit, at the time Rockefeller came on the scene, there was a whole bunch of advisors that were frustrated with the wirehouses, didn't want to go from Merrill to Morgan or Morgan to UBS because they viewed that as more of the same. They looked at independence. They thought that independence, there were aspects of it that they loved, but it was a bridge too far. And if they served high net worth clients, there was nothing really that met the moment. So either they stayed by inertia or they went to a Morgan Stanley or a UBS or something of the sort by default. I think Rockefeller solved for that. Do you agree with that? What do you think about that statement?
My reaction is essentially 100% agreement, which maybe isn't surprising based on some of our earlier conversation. We had a number one criteria, which you may or may not remember, which was we're not going to go to any place owned by a bank. That was our criteria. We didn't want to be owned by a bank. Looking back 6 years, that looks even better than it did at the time 6 years ago. And I think for us, we weren't that interested in choosing the color of the carpet and signing office leases and the day-to-day minutia of running a business and compliance, et cetera. And Rockefeller did fit that need exactly. And it has been a platform for us, and I think for many successful advisors, to really jumpstart and catapult their business to a whole nother level that
Mhm.
maybe even we didn't think we could get to.
Yeah. So you absolutely remember talking about one of your main criteria is we don't want to work for a firm that's owned by a bank. So how about a firm like Morgan Stanley? Morgan Stanley is a wealth management firm that owns a bank but isn't owned by a bank. Might you have considered them? And I'm rewinding to the time because that's another way of asking you, what else did you consider at the time? And there are other non-bank owned firms like a Raymond James or a Stifel. So, what of those other options that were also non-bank owned?
So we were considering other forms of independence more so than other wirehouses. Our view at the time, probably our view today, but I think reasonable people could have other views, was that we didn't want to go from one wirehouse to another. And we didn't want to go to a wirehouse that we didn't think was as brand worthy as the one we were leaving. And so all of those things went into it. We looked at some great choices, and you know this, and I know there are great choices, more choices than ever from your perspective, from mine, more choices than ever. And I think that's a great thing because, as you mentioned, not every advisor is the right fit for Rockefeller, and Rockefeller is not the right fit for every advisor. So I'm glad that there's homes, really, I think, for just about anybody that's willing to put in the work and work hard, depending on your personality, depending on your goals and objectives, depending on your geography, depending on your background. There's some great options for really everyone. I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the industry that we're in and the business that we're in. There was great opportunities 6 years ago. There's great
There's
opportunities today.
even more now.
And
Yeah.
so it's terrific.
Yeah, I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. And I think it's good not only for advisors, it's good for the industry, and it's really good for clients. An advisor is able to look at their client base and say, I serve a client base that needs X. And there's more likelihood today than ever before that they're going to find a firm that's best able to serve that niche. So if you rewind to 6 years ago, other than not wanting to work for another bank and kicking the tires of independence. We looked at a number of independent options. What were some of your other priorities? And then the $64,000 question, what really made you settle on Rockefeller?
The priorities were we wanted somewhere where we could go to move up market, to focus on the high net worth and ultra high net worth exclusively, something that was really built for that. We wanted to be able to focus on outcomes for our clients, on delivering for our clients. And that was the most important to us. The makeup of whether we were fully independent or not independent, it was less important to us. We're in an employee channel. That's great for us. We think it's great for a lot of people. And that was very not only comfortable, but also the way we felt we could execute our vision the best.
Rewinding 6 years ago and today, talk to us about Rockefeller's value proposition and the suite of or the investment platform, the suite of services that are available to you. Because 6 years ago in particular, probably less so now, but still a little bit true, is advisors who have not done extensive due diligence on the industry landscape, on options in general, on Rockefeller specifically, worry or wonder if the capabilities could possibly compare to that, if the investments in technology, if the human capital could compare to a firm like a Merrill, for example, that has infinitely greater scale and been around longer.
So, in terms of platform and specifically investment platform, I would argue that what we've got here is second to none. And the example or the way I can prove that, if you will, is let's focus specifically on our alternative investments platform. Without getting into very specifics, we had virtually zero alternative investments with our clients at Merrill, a very small number. And
Because
because our view always was that we wanted to make investments that, and I'm talking about we, my partner and I, JD Sanford, we wanted to make investments that we would be willing to make ourselves.
Mhm.
And we didn't find the offerings that were available to be unique, to be differentiated, to be compelling. And so we had almost zero, a rounding error in our business from alternatives. Roll forward to today, and our alternatives allocation has grown by about 55 times
Yes.
from where it was at Merrill. So a huge growth rate on the alternative investment. And the reason for that is because our platform here is unique, differentiated, and exclusive, and built for the high net worth and ultra high net worth. So there's things that I didn't think about before that I now have the opportunity to be educated on and to think about and to offer to the high net worth and the ultra high net worth. And we could go through examples, but to suffice it to say, when I left Merrill, one of the things I thought, which proved to be incorrect, I thought that an investment platform at any place that I was choosing to go would not and could not be a differentiator.
Yes.
When I went into the marketplace, I thought that I was going to work hard, I was going to out execute, and the investment platform, whether I chose option A, option B, or option C, would be about the same wherever I went. And I was wrong. Our investment platform, when I go out to compete in the marketplace, is in fact an enormous differentiator. It's an enormous differentiator so that I can compete. And when I go into rooms that I really would not have been in before, I can win. And
So,
that's exciting.
yeah, it's really exciting. And I would love for you to drill down on that a little. So, give us some examples. I mean, 99% of the advisors that work for firms like Merrill, UBS, Morgan Wells would say they have a vast toolbox and access to everything that they need in terms of whether it be alternative investments or banking products, any investment solution you can think of. So that's a big statement to say that you think that what you have access to and your ability to compete is greater here than there. Give me some examples. That would be really helpful.
So the examples are, well, let me back up. At Merrill, I can remember meeting after meeting where I would show somebody something and I would say the word exclusive, and they would then send me the deck from another firm. And so then it wasn't so exclusive, and I didn't feel so good about that. Here, we have exclusive direct deals where we're investing directly in specific companies. Here, we have exclusive alternative deals related to different kinds of royalty streams, income streams that have been very successful and differentiated compared to anything out there. And when we say the word exclusive, I know it to be true because I have really a direct line of access to the people that are doing the due diligence.
Interesting. What else beyond alternative investments is unique to Rockefeller? And I'm not only asking about investment capabilities, but what other kind of things are unique or better about Rockefeller's platform overall? And I'm asking you about technology as well, as compared to Merrill or the other traditional firms you may have looked at.
On the technology front, since you asked about that specifically, I'm just going to say the rate of change happens much more quickly. What I mean by that is the firm is a listening firm. I think I said it earlier, but I'm going to say it again. It was a great firm 6 years ago. It's an even better firm today. I think it's going to be a better firm 6 years from now. Why? Because the leadership and the people that can impact change at the firm level, at the technology level, are listening in real time. And it's not something I experienced at the other firm. And the reason is because we are a flat organization. If I want to email or call the CTO with feedback about a frustration that I have, I do it and they respond to me in 10 or 15 minutes. I just did that the other day that we're getting this great email with some specific dates that are very important to me. And it was really helpful. The information was helpful. But inboxes as they are, we get about all of us are inundated with emails. And I said, why don't we put that information over here on this particular dashboard? Great. That's a terrific idea. We'll put it on our list to add. It's that simple. So the flatness of the organization is a benefit to the technology platform and to really any aspect of the platform if you want to talk specifically about technology. But let's go on to the expansiveness of the platform from investments to what we call family office counseling to philanthropy advisory. I just had an example the other day, a high net worth client who has a large donor advised fund that sat there without any grants for the last 3 years. No problem. You can grant when you want. The client reached out to us and says, we're having a hard time figuring out where to give this money. We want to be supportive of these types of organizations, but we want to do it strategically. We don't want to do it haphazardly in a one-off way. Okay, terrific. Well, we can get on with Adrienne Hart, our head of philanthropy, and I was blown away with the level of process and diligence that she approached this client to give them a roadmap to how to actually start delivering on what is in their heart, on what they want to do. They want to give this money away, but they've been stuck in the mud because of all sorts of reasons about, is this going to go to the people we really want? Or is there going to be a lot of admin costs? Or really helping them hone in on what is actually the most important to them in a very specific way that allows them to now say, okay, we're going to actually withdraw or make a grant from our donor advised fund of this dollar amount to these 3 organizations this year, and we're going to do it next year and the following year. So that is a great process from philanthropy, and then the trust team, the trust services, and everything that we have available to lifestyle advisory, which is also a change in the industry. Clients expect more from us than they did in the past. And so our lifestyle advisory is a suite of curated partnerships where we can go out and help people curate their art collection. We can help them curate their wine collection those are the fun ones, the positive things. But there's also some things that go wrong in people's lives. And we can help them if they're worried about the cybersecurity or even physical security. All of these curated partnerships, which I never dreamed we would be able to have access to in the role as what was formerly called financial advisor. Now we call ourselves private advisors. Never dreamed we'd have access to those things. So these tools in the tool belt that I talked about at the very outset of our conversation include all of these other items, from philanthropy to lifestyle advisory to the trust company and the alternatives platform, which I mentioned, unique, differentiated. At every step of the way, I feel like we have a unique, differentiated offering that gives me confidence to go into the marketplace and compete and win.
So thank you for that. Those are great examples and makes it tangible. Can you compare then, if you were still an advisor at Merrill or you're talking to your colleagues at Merrill who have an equally high net worth client, and that client asked that Merrill advisor or you when you were at Merrill, I have a donor advised fund and I'm a little stuck in the mud, or I want access to unique alternative investments, and you already addressed that one. Or I want to talk with you about trust capabilities, whatever else it may be. How do you think that on the other fronts, how does one compare to the other? What would you have done at Merrill in a similar situation?
It's a really good question. 6 years ago, what would I have done in that situation? I think I would have tried to do more myself because I didn't have confidence, for right or wrong, I didn't have confidence in the organization to help me deliver.
Mhm.
And what I have here is confidence in the organization to deliver. And the reason is because of actually one word that you just said a moment ago, which is my magic word that I hammer to my team and everyone else. You said the word access. And access is the differentiator for me. There are smart people at every firm. There are good, talented, smart people at every firm. But remember, I talked about the flatness of the organization here, which is still, somewhat to my surprise, very flat 6 years in. And so I'm convinced it will be going forward. But that access to the right professionals at the right time in real time is incredible.
Yeah.
And that's the big difference.
Do you think that it is that access that has fueled 2.5 times growth? I mean, and I guess that's a long-winded way or a short way of asking you, what has fueled that growth? Because that is extraordinary.
So look, it's part of it for sure. It's absolutely part of it. I don't think that anyone has a monopoly on good ideas, and I don't think that it was just my hard work and business acumen that got us here. I think that had something to do with it too. But I think being at a firm that was built from the ground up for high net worth and ultra high net worth instilled a level of confidence in me that allowed me to be situated in rooms that I would not have been in 6 years ago, and that allowed me then to win. So it's a multi-factor equation, if you will, that got to that 2.5 times growth. And Rockefeller is a big part of that equation.
Right. So I like the way you phrase it. It got me into room confidence to get into rooms I might not have gotten into 6 years ago. I think that's an interesting way of putting it, that when you feel good about the business card you're carrying, whether it be you're an independent advisor and you're carrying Rubinstein Wealth Management, or you're an employee of Rockefeller or an employee of Merrill, when you feel good and confident that the business card you're carrying, the firm you're representing, and the platform you're able to deliver is exactly what you want it to be, you show up differently in the world.
100%.
I think that's a really good answer. I like that.
Thank you.
Two other questions that come to mind. So, one is that every advisor asks us about Rockefeller. Every smart advisor that's considering change wants to know about Rockefeller. Whether they ultimately join has everything to do with whether how motivated they are to move or what else they're considering or what they want to be when they grow up. The two reasons from my perspective that people don't join Rockefeller, one, because it's not independent enough. Which is as it's meant to be. And that's not a knock on Rockefeller. That's to say there are people for whom being independent, being an entrepreneur, having sole ownership of the equity, sole ownership of the brand, sole ownership of everything is what they want. And so Rockefeller, no matter how much more autonomy it grants an advisor than someone at Merrill, it may not be independent enough for some. The other negative sometimes is someone who leads with lending, who does a lot of banking, will say the fact that Rockefeller does not own a bank, and that if someone, in fact, wants to do lending, they have to go to a third party. And so the integration isn't there, it isn't seamless. What would you say to that? Because that's a big one. I wouldn't say that's the vast majority of advisors. In fact, the opposite. I think most advisors get comfortable with the solution set, but I would love for you to address that.
So I'm glad you asked because I've got a very real time, very specific example on the second part of your comment. The first part of your comment, of course, is true. There's lots of great models. Somebody wants to be quote unquote fully independent and not be an employee, then they need to do something different. And that's okay. There's a lot of successful people that do that. I have some great friends that do that. So different models for different people depending on what you like. On the part about it's not a bank, there's no lending, I would tell you the solution set is better for the client not being integrated or not being owned by a bank. And I'll give you the example that we literally just wrapped up 3 days ago. Had the opportunity, was introduced to a very ultra high net worth individual who has multiple homes and was looking to buy another home, a $15 million property, has an existing legacy relationship at a big money center bank, got their proposal and their quote. We were introduced. We said, let us shop the street with both our formal and informal banking relationships that we have. And let's see if we have a solution that you think is superior, that you think is better, that we think is better. And look, if we come back and say the solution you've got is just as good or better, maybe you should go with that. That's the easy button, if you will. As it turns out, we were able to, on a $15 million property, so call it a 10 or $11 million loan, we had a proposal from one of the partners that we looked at that was 50 basis points lower, a meaningful savings for the client. And we worked through with the partner and we got it closed. There, it was some, let's call some hair on it, if you will. There's always complications, but we got it done. We got it closed. The client is thrilled. And frankly, the client is mildly annoyed with his legacy or incumbent bank because they didn't compete. And I think that's a better answer, right? Let's go out and shop. Let's find the best deal for you. And by the way, for what it's worth, no compensatory relationship with this partner for me. So this is me delivering a service in the best interests of the client.
Well, okay, so you took the words right out of my mouth, and thank you for bringing that up. So I get that. And look, the whole value proposition of the RIA space, the chassis on which a Rockefeller is built and anything in the independent space is let us become a buy-side advocate on your behalf. Let
Yeah,
us up the street and create competition for price and service,
100%.
and you win. But the compensatory relationship is a question that a lot of advisors raise. I totally get in that example how it's better for the client. You save the client a considerable amount of money and won the halo effect, right? Became a hero for that client.
That's
But
right.
to an advisor that gets a considerable amount of compensation from lending. So if you're an advisor at Merrill and you're using Bank of America for a mortgage and the advisor gets compensation for that, the advisor loses in the relationship you just described. So how do you reconcile that?
Well, there's a lot of answers I could give. I'll say it this way. Whatever that advisor loses, they're going to make up, pick your multiple fold in all the other things that we can bring to the table for the client. So I don't think any advisor loses. I think they win because it frees up their time. I have found, or I did find 6 years ago, mortgages are time intensive. They are oftentimes a cross your finger and hope they get done type of situation that we don't have control over. Firms don't have control over. Regulations often have control. And so I would argue it frees up your time and whatever, if you will, compensation that you're missing from that loan, you're making up in spades through all kinds of other services and new clients that you get to win because you're not babysitting a mortgage along the way.
I love that answer. It's always been my philosophy for running our business is the notion that you do the right thing for a client. You do the very best thing for the client. In this case, found them a mortgage that saved them a considerable amount of money with probably better terms and better service. And the halo effect that creates is certainly worth more to you than any compensation that you might be losing for getting paid on doing a mortgage with the bank.
You said it better than me. That's exactly right. Do the right thing and it'll all work out. It's a great way to live.
I want to ask you a little bit about the business yourself. So you've always been strong on business development. I remember you telling me that years ago when we worked together. And obviously, if you've grown 2.5 times in 6 years, that's still the case. What can you tell us about your business development philosophy, how you lead, how you bring in new business, et cetera?
Well, like so many things, it's easy to say, hard to do, hard to execute. The philosophy, the headline is Become known and trusted in your community. That's my philosophy. Become known and trusted in your community. The execution of that is promise, deliver, promise, deliver, promise, deliver over and over again. As the young people on my team would say, wash, rinse, repeat. So that's what we do. We become known and trusted in our community. We promise, we deliver. We promise, deliver before people become clients. We promise, we deliver. And that's how it's worked. And it's been a great run.
I think a lot of advisors might say a similar answer. Whether everybody executes as well as you do, who knows? But that notion of leading with service and delivering on that service is a fabulous model. You have to be able to get in front of a prospect in the first place. So, how has carrying the Rockefeller business card and describing the model that is Rockefeller impacted your ability to grow? And I'd love for you to start. So, carrying the Rockefeller business card, how has it impacted your ability to grow? But maybe a first question, a precursor to that is, how did it impact your ability to move your clients when on the day you left Merrill? What did the value proposition sound like? And did everyone immediately connect to the Rockefeller name?
The value proposition when we left Merrill, which is true today without a doubt, is we're going to a firm that was built to serve arguably the most successful family from a generational wealth perspective in the history of the world. And we get to bring those resources to bear for you. And so, yeah, just about everybody came within the first 90 days. Just about everybody came within the first 90 days, and it was terrific. Was I nervous about leaving? Absolutely. Was I anxious? Absolutely. Should I have been less so with benefit of hindsight? Yes. However, it all was great, and within 90 days, we were fully up and running. Now, going forward, it's maybe even the more important question. How has being at Rockefeller impacted the ability to grow? In many ways, but the example that I give is this, and they're great firms, Merrill, great firm, all these other firms, great firms. When my clients or when our clients are out in the wild, as I like to say, and someone asks them because they have a need, who do you use or who do you suggest? My view was that Merrill, when they said I use Neil, oh, where's he at? He's at Merrill. My view was that the potential client in their mind said, oh, Neil's at Merrill. And in their mind, they're running through the 16 other men and women that they know at Merrill. And they might like some of them and they might not like some of them. And they equate me with the 16 other people that they know at Merrill. And it's not really motivating to talk to me because they've already got a list of 16 other people that they know. Rockefeller is a much more exclusive place. When my client says, oh, I'm with RSA Family Wealth and Neil at Rockefeller, it spurs the next question because everyone knows the Rockefeller family, but they may not know about Rockefeller Capital Management and the Rockefeller Global Family Office. And the minute that potential client is asking the next question, I think we're getting a first meeting. And so it's because of the exclusivity of our offering, it creates a powerful desire to see what it's all about. And that desire to see what it's all about allows me to get into rooms that I wouldn't have been able to get into.
I love it. Actually, thank you for connecting the dots on that. You said, was I nervous? Yes. And that was with respect to the question around portability of clients. So I'm at this 30 years. In 30 years, the number one concern that every advisor, any advisor considering change worries about is whether their clients will come. And rightly so. You built an extraordinary business. You don't have a crystal ball. You like to think, you hope with fingers crossed that you've done good enough work for your clients, that work has been rooted in trust and that it's a good relationship and that they will follow you. But Merrill's a hefty competitor. And you know that Merrill, when you leave, is going to be selling against you and attempting to retain those clients. And so, hence the nerves. No matter how convinced you may be that you found a firm with a better value proposition. To that end, What advice would you give an advisor that, like you, was at where you were 6 years ago, becoming increasingly frustrated with your firm, wanting something different, wanting more autonomy and control and freedom, but whether it be because you're 57 years old and just don't have I'm not saying you are, whether you don't have an appetite for building something from scratch, or because you just feel like to go to any other firm would be more of the same. With respect to that fear factor, the anxiety that everybody has, what would you say to those folks?
Probably I learned this from you 6 years ago, Mindy, so I'll give you credit. But I would say, look at your clients, be brutally honest with yourself, evaluate where did they come from? Who was the source of that business? Are they what I'll put in air quotes, firm clients, or did you source that business? And most important, I learned this later, do you have multiple points of connectivity with that client? Because a single point of connectivity can be broken easily, but multiple points of connectivity are tougher to break. And so be brutally honest, evaluate where the business came from, and look at, do you have multiple points of connectivity? And then one that's obvious, but perhaps not so obvious, is you got to do it by the book. Don't skirt the rules. When you're at a big firm, do the right thing, do down the middle of the fairway. Don't take things you're not supposed to take. Take only what you're supposed to take and do it the right way.
Yeah. When you say multiple points of connectivity, tell us what you mean by that.
What I've found is that if our relationship is simply a business relationship or simply an investment relationship, and I don't actually ever see you anywhere else except in, say, a review meeting or at a client event, I think those relationships can be great and they can endure and they can last. However, they're not as strong as if you see your clients, what again, I'll go back to the phrase I use, out in the wild also. And that's where I go back to become known and trusted in your community. Are you really in that community? If you are, you don't work at creating multiple points of connection. Multiple points of connection happen organically because you are indeed known and trusted in your community.
I love that. I think that's great. I had a feeling that's what you meant, but thank you for clarifying that. So talk to me about your business, your team. What comes next? What are you excited about for the future? Where do you go from here?
We are excited to continue to grow. We work hard. I don't know if we're outworking everybody, but I think we're outworking a lot of people. And the team is great. We've got 9 people. Again, 3 client associates, a financial planning analyst. I suspect we'll be adding people. I don't plan on slowing down because I'm excited about being here. I love the business I'm in. I had a dinner, I think it was 2 years ago. I was meeting an old college buddy up in New York, a very successful guy. He's done very well. And we were talking about business and he said to me, "Why are you working so hard? My feet are up. I've got all what I need. My family's taken care of." And I just said, I'm excited about what I do. I'm excited to go to work every day. I love what I do. I want to have impact, not only for my clients, but for the team members and for the young people that we're bringing along and developing. So the next 6 years, I think will be better than the last 6 years. And the 6 years after that will be even better.
Yeah. First of all, I love that answer and I'm excited for you. I mean, I can sense your passion. And when I was working with you 6 years ago, every deal I do is like birthing a child. You only hope that the child will be successful and all at once. So it feels good. But I'll say something that strikes me. What strikes me is when you are working for the right firm and you're in the right place and you feel really good about what you're able to do for clients, it's all clicking. You don't feel friction points. You feel a level of congruence. And I don't know if you remember me using that word with you.
I do.
I think if I had to describe the number one thing that drives people away from their firms, it's a level of incongruence, of disconnection between what the advisor wants to be doing for clients or the way the advisor feels clients should be served and the way the firm expects them to or allows them to serve clients. And it's that incongruence that I think creates a lot of dissatisfaction. That stupid saying, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. I mean, that's what I hear you saying, is that congruence, feeling like you're in the right place and you're able to do everything you want to be able to do for your clients. And it's the example with the lending. It's not about making the most amount of money or gather every single chip on the table. It's about being able to do what's right for clients and knowing that's right, that feels the best. I love that answer.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I had not even thought about compensation on that particular loan
Right.
until we were talking today. And I feel like we've got a great industry. My three kids all went to the University of Michigan, and the Harbaugh family has that saying, who's got it better than us? And that's where I think I am. And that's where I think we are as a business, and not just my business, but all of my colleagues here as well.
Yeah.
So who's got it better than us?
Yeah, I'm with you. One final question. Let's close. When you think about your own journey, I'd love to hear how you define success today and how perhaps your definition of success has changed in the last 6 years and in the last 2 decades.
When I think back about this question, I think about an opportunity I had a little bit more than a decade ago, actually, to speak in front of 1,000 people in an organization that I cared deeply about at the time and I care deeply about today. And I was talking to that organization about moving from success to significance. And in writing those words that I was delivering, because it was a formal speech, so I wrote it all out, it resonated with me. And from that moment forward, my definition of success changed, or in fact, was replaced with significance. And the way that applies to the business is to say we can help our clients be successful, and I can be successful in traditional financial metrics or whatever, growth rates, et cetera, which are really important for sure. But what I really want to be, and what I wanted to be from that moment forward to today, and 6 years ago to today, and 6 years from now, is significant in the lives of our clients and significant in the lives of my team and staff. So for me, success is defined as moving from success to significance.
Give me an example of how you feel more significant. You mentioned your team. How do you think you're more significant to your team now than you were 6 years ago? And how are you more significant to your clients than you were 6 years ago?
Well, I think that I am I'll start with the clients. And the reason I said who's got it better than us, because we get paid and people say thank you to us. And that to me is significance. And when a client, one of the older clients, has a mental impairment capacity issue, and the children are calling me and thanking me, and the son-in-law, this is a true story, the other day, the son-in-law is an advisor at another firm, and he wants to be on the call with me, and I can see his arms are up and he's ready to go. And by the end of the call, he tells his mother-in-law, these people are great. You're in great hands. I can tell they love you. We've got this covered. We're going to help you, but this is great. That's being significant.
I love it. Neil, this has been a joy and a pleasure times 10. I love this. I love everything you've said. Your passion is contagious and delightful. And I'm going to take you up on this. 6 years from now, we're going to see where you're at again.
We'll do it gladly. Appreciate the opportunity. It's a pleasure to talk with you. It was a pleasure to work with you. I know those 6 months, I think we talked every week, multiple times a week. You are a great force. You helped me to organize my thoughts. You helped me to really come to a great conclusion to a process that was efficient and that was thoughtful and that relied on what I could tell was your experience every step of the way. No new ground being cut here. And so that was really important to me, and I'm sure it's important to your other clients as well.
That's really very kind. That means a lot to me. Thank you.
You bet.
As a financial advisor, you hold yourself to the highest standards of integrity, honesty, and credibility. You are successful because you take your professional responsibilities seriously and are dedicated to your clients. But are you living your best business life? Are your goals aligned with your firm's, or could a better option exist? Should I Stay or Should I Go is a book written with you in mind. It's a self-guided journey that walks you through the key steps that we take with our advisor clients. This strategic thought process and roadmap to professional self-discovery is designed to help you ask the right questions and think critically and objectively, whether you're considering change or not. Learn how to get your copy at diamond-consultants.com/thebook.